This is going to take so much fucking editing. Hi, I'm so glad you're here. Today we're going over making ethereal ambient sounds in Ableton. All the plugins and the samples that I use will be available for free in the description. So here I have all the samples in Ableton. The first thing I'm going to do is select all of them, holding down shift and then click from the bottom to the top one. And then I'm going to turn off the warp on all of them. I don't care about the timing of these samples because as we process them, they'll get time stretched anyway, so we might as well not lose quality by warping them now. Next, I'm going to go through each one and I'm going to find a little chunk that I like. We want to grab pretty small chunks from these because then that'll give us the most room to stretch them out really far, which will create the most abstract, ethereal sounds. Alright, now that we have all of our source material, let's just do ourselves a favor and get the rest of this out of the way by scooting it down to the right here. Now let's start with this super saw. I think first I want to distort this pretty heavily, so I will use the stock Ableton saturator. Use the analog clip mode, increase the drive pretty heavily. Now that sounds pretty crazy, but trust the process. Alright, I like that. Now let's get in here and let's use the warp function on the texture mode. By holding down shift and then dragging on the edge of the clip, I can do time stretching of it. Hear that metallic, grainy, kind of chattery sound? We can improve that a lot by increasing the grain size and the flux. Press Ctrl B to bounce this out. Next I'll load up an amazing free plugin, Pulse Stretch, and I'm going to drag the bounce sample in here. Sometimes samples don't load into Pulse Stretch, in which case bouncing out the track to a new audio clip usually fixes it. I'm not going to touch any of the settings, I'm just going to increase the stretch amount until the output length gets to about a minute. Especially after running through Pulse Stretch, we want to make sure that the warp is off. Now that we're done with these tracks, we'll collapse them. Let's grab an even shorter section here. Let's try running this through an echo. So I've got the feedback set quite high, and then I'm going to adjust this filter. Now we'll compress this with some OTT to bring out the tail from the reverb. When we use OTT, it's important to adjust the crossover frequencies depending on the source material. For example, if we have some source material that doesn't have a lot of low frequencies, it doesn't make sense to compress down at 88 Hz. So instead, we'll bring this up until it's actually catching some of the content of the sound. Alright, I think that sounds pretty cool. Control B to bounce this out. Oh, let's see how this sounds. Now let's just take a smaller chunk of this and then have this play on loop. And let's use a shifter to get this a little bit closer to in tune. So it's on the pitch shift mode, and I'm going to dial the fine tune up and down until I find a sweet spot. This will be down pretty far in the mix, so it doesn't matter a lot, but I still want to get it close. Then let's filter out some of the lower frequencies here. And finally, I'll run it through the Ableton saturator, this time on the soft sine mode. And then I'll wash this out with Valhalla Supermassive. To turn Supermassive from more of a delay into a reverb, we just need to adjust two knobs, the warp and the density. So bumping those up, as well as the feedback, here's what we get. I love that. Let's Control B to bounce it out. You'll notice that I'm bouncing these out a lot in order to work in audio. That's because, first of all, working in audio encourages you to only take steps forward instead of just being able to Control Z, undo your way back. And it also gives you more flexibility and more options when it comes to your processing. I know that sounds a little bit out of tune, but that's exactly what we want. You might think that we'd only want harmonic tonal sounds for making these ambiences. Actually, having some sounds that are atonal or out of tune will give it a more unique, interesting character. They just have to be blended in much lower than the tonal elements that will anchor it. So I took this piano and bounced it in place so that we can bring it into pulse stretch, dragging this into here, and then I'm going to stretch this out quite a bit. Now we have the finished file loaded in. I think next we just need some more layers. So now let's grab a new audio track and let's start thinking about what to do with this guitar. EQ back that resonance a little bit. I'll grab Supermassive again, bring the feedback to just under 100%, and with really high feedbacks we don't want to set the modulation too high or else it can get really out of tune. So let's leave that down at 10% and then turn up the warp and density, and let's try a different mode. Now let's compress this to extend the tail, adjust the bands here, then Control B to bounce this out. Now let's extend this out again. This time let's use the Beats Warp mode. Let's set this to quarter notes, have it play front to back like that. Let's get a fade in so we don't have a sharp transient there. The last thing I think I'll add in here is a bit of a lower frequency pad to help ground the whole thing. And we'll just do that in Ableton's wavetable. Select halfway between a saw and a square, bring the filter back. Give it a bit of the shimmer detune. Fill in some notes below this. So I'll have these notes just playing an A sharp minor chord. With the 7th on the top there. So now that we have something that's sounding good, I'm just going to work on the balance between the different elements. I think that this layer that's a little bit more atonal and detuned should come down in volume to not disrupt the whole thing. Now I've grouped them so that we can do some processing on all of them together. Just want to prevent a buildup of low frequencies. Got a high pass filter. When every sound has this much sustain and this much space, it's very easy for them to build up and then start to sound muddy together. Once you have something that sounds good, it's important to stop and not overdo it. If you like what you saw here, I'm excited to announce that I just finished my first sample pack. This pack contains 20 ambient drones. I even included all the layers so you can mix and match in between them for endless combinations. This is the perfect tool for filling out your tracks or sparking new ideas. Feel free to tag me in anything that you make with it, I'd love to see it. It's available at the link in the description. Alright, that's all for now, thanks for sticking around.